Hello, my beautiful souls. Today we are going to explore a title that might sound strange to you. Do not be kind now. Don't let this title mislead you. It's not about turning your back on kindness, but rather about a deeper understanding of what kindness truly is. Too often we confuse kindness with people-pleasing, self-neglect, or even a lack of boundaries. So let's dive in together and uncover the true meaning of kindness from a place of empowerment and self-love. Kindness begins within. It's a simple phrase, but it carries immense power. For many of us, kindness is something we instinctively offer to others, but too often we forget to direct it inward. We believe that being kind means making sacrifices for others, putting their needs before our own, and ensuring we don't hurt anyone's feelings. But what we sometimes miss is that true kindness, the kind that enriches both ourselves and others, starts with how we treat ourselves. If you've ever felt drained, frustrated, or resentful from constantly giving and never receiving, then it's time to understand that kindness is not just something you offer to the outside world, it's a practice you cultivate from within. Many of us have been conditioned to believe that self-care is selfish. We've grown up with messages that tell us to always put others first, to be good and generous, even when it costs us our own peace. We often think that kindness means saying yes to every request, even when it depletes our energy or compromises our well-being. But when we fail to care for ourselves, we lose touch with our own needs, and instead of kindness, what we offer others becomes an empty gesture filled with hidden resentment or exhaustion. The truth is, you cannot give what you do not have. If your emotional, mental, or physical reserves are empty, the kindness you offer is unsustainable. You may be able to push through for a while, but eventually you will find yourself feeling drained, worn out, and maybe even resentful. This is why it's so important to fill your own cup first. When you nurture yourself, you ensure that what you offer others comes from a place of abundance, not scarcity. You're no longer giving out of obligation or guilt. You're sharing because you genuinely want to, and because you have the energy and capacity to do so. Self-kindness starts with acknowledging your own worth. Many of us are so busy taking care of others, we forget that we too are deserving of care. We speak harshly to ourselves, criticizing our every flaw and mistake, while offering compassion to everyone else. Imagine speaking to a friend the way you sometimes speak to yourself, constantly telling them they're not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy. How would that friend feel? How long would that relationship last? Yet many of us maintain this kind of relationship with ourselves, thinking that self-criticism will somehow motivate us to do better. But here's the secret: self-criticism doesn't lead to growth, self-compassion does. When you're kind to yourself, you create an environment of safety and love within. You become your own best friend, your own advocate. And from this space, real transformation happens. When you treat yourself with kindness, you acknowledge that you are doing the best you can with what you have in each moment. You stop expecting perfection from yourself and start embracing your humanity, flaws and all. Another key aspect of self-kindness is allowing yourself to rest. We live in a culture that glorifies busyness and productivity, where rest is often seen as a luxury rather than a necessity. But rest is essential for your well-being. Just as you wouldn't expect a car to run without fuel, you can't expect yourself to keep going without taking time to recharge. Allow yourself to rest when you need it. Take breaks without guilt. Listen to your body when it tells you it's tired. By honoring your need for rest, you're practicing kindness toward yourself. Self-kindness also means setting boundaries. Many of us have a hard time saying no, especially to those we care about. We fear that by setting limits we'll disappoint others or come across as selfish. But the truth is, boundaries are a form of self-care, and they are necessary for healthy relationships. Without boundaries, you run the risk of overextending yourself, which ultimately leads to burnout. When you say no to something that doesn't serve you, you're saying yes to yourself. You're affirming that your needs, your energy, and your well-being are important. It's also important to remember that self-kindness is not about perfection. There will be days when you struggle, when you fall back into old patterns of self-criticism or people-pleasing, but kindness means forgiving yourself for those moments. It means recognizing that you are human, and like all humans, you're a work in progress. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate your efforts, no matter how small they may seem. Every step you take towards self-kindness is a victory. As you cultivate kindness toward yourself, something magical happens. The kindness you offer others becomes more genuine and sustainable. When you're kind to yourself, you don't feel resentful when you're kind to others. You're able to give freely because you're not sacrificing your own well-being in the process. You're not giving out of obligation or fear of judgment. You're giving from a place of love and abundance. And here's another beautiful truth: when you treat yourself with kindness, you inspire others to do the same. People pick up on your energy, and when they see you setting healthy boundaries, taking care of yourself, and speaking kindly to yourself, they are more likely to treat you with the same respect and care. In this way, self-kindness not only transforms your relationship with yourself, but it also improves your relationships with others. So, let today be the day you decide to be kind to yourself. Speak to yourself with compassion. Honor your needs. Set boundaries. Allow yourself to rest. And remember that by being kind to yourself, you're not only enriching your own life, but you're also creating a ripple effect of kindness that touches everyone around you. True kindness begins within, and when you nurture it, it will flow effortlessly into everything you do. Kindness and people-pleasing are often confused, yet they are fundamentally different. While kindness is rooted in genuine care and compassion, people-pleasing stems from a desire for approval, acceptance, or fear of rejection. True kindness comes from a place of strength, integrity, and authenticity, whereas people-pleasing often arises from insecurity or need to avoid conflict. Understanding this distinction is crucial, because people-pleasing, though it may seem kind on the surface, can lead to emotional exhaustion, resentment, and a loss of self. People-pleasing is the act of prioritizing others' needs and desires over your own in an effort to gain approval or avoid disapproval. It often involves saying yes when you want to say no, agreeing with others even when you disagree, and going along with things that don't align with your values. It's easy to mistake these behaviors for kindness because they often result in temporary harmony or praise. However, people-pleasing is a form of self-abandonment. When you prioritize others' opinions and desires above your own, you betray your authentic self. One of the biggest misconceptions about kindness is that it means always being agreeable, never saying no and doing whatever it takes to make others happy. But true kindness does not require you to sacrifice your own well-being or compromise your values. When you are kind, you act with empathy and respect, but you also maintain your own boundaries and integrity. People-pleasing, on the other hand, is driven by a fear of disappointing others or facing conflict. This fear often leads to a pattern of behavior where you put others' happiness before your own, which ultimately results in an imbalance in relationships. A key difference between kindness and people-pleasing is the intention behind your actions. When you're being kind, your actions come from a place of love and care without expecting anything in return. You help others because you genuinely want to, not because you feel obligated to earn their approval or avoid their disapproval. In contrast, people-pleasing is often motivated by a desire to be liked, accepted, or avoid conflict. The kindness offered in people-pleasing is conditional. It's done in hopes of receiving something back, whether it's praise, validation, or simply avoiding negative reactions. One of the most damaging effects of people-pleasing is that it disconnects you from your true self. Over time, the habit of saying yes when you really want to say no erodes your sense of identity. You begin to lose touch with your own needs, desires, and values because you're so focused on meeting the expectations of others. This leads to an internal conflict where you feel torn between being true to yourself and maintaining the image others expect of you. This disconnection from your authentic self creates emotional turmoil, often manifesting as frustration, anxiety, or resentment. Resentment is a common byproduct of people-pleasing. When you consistently put others' needs before your own, it's only a matter of time before you start feeling taken advantage of or unappreciated. You may find yourself silently keeping score, noting all the times you've sacrificed your own needs without getting the recognition or reciprocation you hoped for. This leads to a buildup of resentment that can strain your relationships and erode your sense of self-worth. Resentment is a clear signal that you've been giving from an empty place, not from a space of true kindness. Another important aspect of kindness that is absent in people-pleasing is the ability to set healthy boundaries. Boundaries are essential for maintaining healthy relationships and protecting your emotional well-being. When you're genuinely kind, you respect both your own limits and the limits of others. You know when to say no and when to step back, not out of fear or selfishness, but out of respect for your own needs. People-pleasers, however, often struggle with boundaries. They feel guilty or anxious about setting limits, fearing that doing so will upset others or cause conflict. As a result, they end up overextending themselves, saying yes to things they don't have the capacity for, and ultimately burning out. True kindness requires self-respect. It involves recognizing your own needs and values as equally important to those of others. When you respect yourself, you can give from a place of abundance rather than depletion. You are able to help others because you've taken care of your own well-being first. People pleasers, on the other hand, often lack this sense of self-respect. They seek validation from external sources, whether it's praise, approval, or acceptance, rather than from within. This constant need for external validation makes them vulnerable to manipulation and exploitation, as they are willing to compromise their own well-being in order to please others. An important lesson in distinguishing kindness from people-pleasing is learning to say no without guilt. Saying no can feel uncomfortable, especially if you're used to people-pleasing, but it's a necessary skill for maintaining your own well-being. Saying no is not unkind. In fact, it's an act of self-care. When you say no to something that doesn't serve you, you're saying yes to your own needs and priorities. This is not selfish, it's a healthy expression of self-love. The more you practice saying no with kindness and confidence, the more you strengthen your sense of self and cultivate healthier, more balanced relationships. Kindness also involves honesty with yourself and with others. People pleasers often hide their true feelings and opinions in an effort to keep the peace. They may agree with others even when they don't actually agree, or they may go along with things they don't believe in just to avoid confrontation. This kind of behavior is not kind, it's dishonest. True kindness requires you to be honest, even when it's uncomfortable. Being kind means speaking your truth with compassion, not hiding your feelings to keep others happy. It means being authentic and standing up for what you believe in while still respecting the feelings of others. In the end, true kindness begins with self-awareness and self-compassion. It requires you to honor your own needs and boundaries while offering genuine care to others. People-pleasing, on the other hand, sacrifices authenticity for approval. It prioritizes external validation over internal well-being, leading to emotional exhaustion and resentment. By letting go of people-pleasing and embracing true kindness, you create a life that is both compassionate and empowered, a life where you can give to others without losing yourself in the process. Kindness is often perceived as an act of generosity, warmth, and selflessness. While this is true, there's a deeper, often overlooked aspect of kindness that involves setting clear and healthy boundaries. Boundaries are not barriers that push others away, but rather guidelines that help protect your emotional, mental, and even physical well-being. They define what is acceptable in your interactions with others, and more importantly, they honor your sense of self. True kindness does not mean giving endlessly to others without regard for your own needs. Instead, it means balancing your empathy for others with the self-respect that comes from having clear limits. The first and most important step in understanding how kindness is connected to boundaries is realizing that boundaries are an act of self-care. Without boundaries, we risk becoming overwhelmed, overextended, and even resentful. When we give too much of ourselves, our time, energy, or emotional resources, we end up feeling drained, which doesn't benefit anyone in the long run. A common misconception is that setting boundaries is selfish or rude, but the truth is that boundaries are necessary to preserve your well-being. They allow you to protect your energy and take care of yourself so that when you do give, you can do so from a place of abundance rather than exhaustion. Boundaries are also an expression of self-respect. When you set clear boundaries, you are affirming your own value and worth. You are saying to yourself, I matter. My time, my emotions, and my energy are valuable, and I deserve to protect them. This is not selfishness, it's an essential part of living a balanced and fulfilled life. If you continuously allow others to overstep your boundaries, you are sending a message to yourself and the world that your needs are not important. Over time, this can erode your self-esteem and lead to feelings of frustration, resentment, and even burnout. One of the main reasons people struggle to set boundaries is the fear of being seen as unkind or uncaring. We worry that if we say no, others will feel hurt or disappointed, or that we will be perceived as selfish. However, kindness is not about always saying yes or making everyone happy. It's about being honest with yourself and others about what you can and cannot give. When you set a boundary, you are not rejecting the other person, you are simply honoring your own needs. In fact, when you set clear boundaries, you are offering others the gift of clarity. They know where they stand with you and what they can reasonably expect from you, which leads to healthier, more respectful relationships. Setting boundaries also creates a deeper sense of trust in relationships. When you are clear about your limits, others can trust that when you say yes, you truly mean it. This builds mutual respect and understanding. If you're constantly saying yes out of obligation, people may sense that your kindness is forced or insincere. Over time, this can lead to resentment on both sides. By setting boundaries, you create space for authentic, genuine interactions where both parties are respected. It's important to remember that healthy relationships thrive on mutual respect and understanding, and boundaries are a crucial part of that dynamic. A key aspect of boundary setting is learning how to say no without guilt. For many, saying no feels uncomfortable or even painful. We fear disappointing others or being perceived as unhelpful. However, saying no is not unkind, it is necessary. If you are constantly saying yes to things that drain you or that you don't genuinely want to do, you are sacrificing your own well-being. Over time, this will lead to emotional exhaustion and resentment, which can damage your relationships and your sense of self. Learning to say no is a vital part of boundary setting, and it's an act of kindness toward yourself. It's important to understand that boundaries can look different for everyone. For some, a boundary might involve limiting the amount of time spent on certain activities or with certain people. For others, it could mean emotional boundaries, such as not engaging in conversations that make them feel uncomfortable or drained. Emotional boundaries are particularly important in relationships because they help you protect your mental health. For example, if someone frequently unloads their problems onto you without considering your emotional state, it's important to set a boundary that protects your emotional energy. You might say something like, "I care about you, but I can't have this conversation right now. I need some time to recharge." Boundaries also apply to the workplace and other professional environments. It can be tempting to overcommit or take on more than you can handle in an effort to appear helpful or capable. However, overextending yourself at work can lead to burnout and decrease your productivity. Setting professional boundaries, such as not answering work emails after a certain hour or saying no to additional tasks when your plate is already full, is essential for maintaining a healthy work-life balance. In the long run, these boundaries not only protect your mental health, but also enhance your performance and well-being at work. Another important aspect of boundary setting is recognizing that you are not responsible for how others react to your boundaries. When you set a boundary, some people may be disappointed or even upset. This is especially true if they are used to you always being available or accommodating. However, you are not responsible for managing others' emotions. Your responsibility is to take care of yourself and communicate your needs clearly and respectfully. How others choose to respond is up to them. Over time, most people will come to respect your boundaries, and those who don't may not have been respecting you to begin with. In the process of setting boundaries, it's essential to remember that boundaries are not about building walls to keep others out. Instead, they are about creating healthy, respectful spaces where both you and others can interact with clarity and understanding. Boundaries are flexible and can change over time as your needs and circumstances evolve. The key is to remain in touch with your own needs and to communicate them openly and honestly. In conclusion, kindness is not about self-sacrifice or people-pleasing. It's about honoring your own needs while respecting the needs of others. Setting boundaries is one of the most powerful acts of kindness you can offer yourself because it allows you to give from a place of fullness rather than depletion. Boundaries protect your well-being, strengthen your relationships, and ultimately lead to a more balanced and fulfilling life. True kindness begins with self-respect, and boundaries are the foundation of that respect. By embracing boundaries, you can create a life where kindness flows freely without sacrificing yourself in the process. Kindness and approval are often mistakenly intertwined in our minds, yet they are vastly different in both intention and effect. Many people believe that being kind means seeking the approval of others, constantly trying to make people happy, or avoiding conflict at all costs. However, true kindness comes from a place of inner strength, compassion, and authenticity, while approval seeking often stems from fear, insecurity, and the need for validation. Kindness is about offering genuine care, regardless of whether others approve of you or your actions. In contrast, approval seeking focuses on ensuring that others accept or like you, even if it means compromising your values or sacrificing your well-being. One of the fundamental differences between kindness and approval seeking is the motivation behind your actions. Kindness is rooted in selflessness, a desire to give without expecting anything in return. When you are kind, you offer help, support, or compassion because it feels right for you, not because you hope to gain approval or avoid disapproval. Approval seeking, on the other hand, is driven by a desire to be liked or accepted. When you seek approval, you are motivated by the need to control how others perceive you. You may act kindly, but your intention is not pure. Rather, it is to gain something from the interaction, whether it's praise, validation, or sense of belonging. This distinction becomes crucial in understanding the consequences of each approach. When kindness comes from a place of authenticity, it feels natural, easy, and uplifting. You are not giving from a place of depletion or seeking external validation. Instead, your kindness is an expression of your true self. And it doesn't matter whether others respond with approval or not. Your kindness is its own reward, and it strengthens your self-esteem and sense of purpose. In contrast, when you base your actions on the need for approval, you end up feeling exhausted, unfulfilled, and often frustrated because approval is fleeting. No matter how much you do to gain others' acceptance, you can't control their responses, and this can leave you feeling inadequate or resentful. A significant problem with confusing kindness with approval is that it leads to a loss of authenticity. When you prioritize approval over being true to yourself, you may find yourself saying yes when you want to say no, agreeing with things you don't believe in, or suppressing your true feelings in order to fit in. Over time, this erodes your sense of self and leaves you feeling disconnected from who you really are. You may start to question your own desires, opinions, and values because you've been so focused on what others think of you. This disconnection from your authentic self is emotionally and mentally draining, and it can lead to anxiety, stress, and even depression. Kindness, on the other hand, nurtures your authenticity. When you act kindly from a place of sincerity, you are in alignment with your values and your true self. You don't feel the need to put on a mask or pretend to be someone you're not in order to gain approval. Instead, you are free to express yourself openly and honestly, knowing that your kindness is a reflection of who you are, not a tool to manipulate others into liking you. This type of authenticity is empowering. It helps you develop a deeper sense of self-confidence and self-worth as you begin to trust in your own goodness rather than relying on the approval of others to validate your worth. Moreover, when you seek approval through kindness, you may find yourself caught in a cycle of people-pleasing. You might go out of your way to make others happy, even if it comes at the expense of your own well-being. This often results in overextending yourself, taking on too many responsibilities, or neglecting your own needs because you are so focused on gaining others' approval. While people-pleasing might bring temporary satisfaction, it usually leads to burnout and resentment. You may start to feel that your efforts are unappreciated, and this can create tension in your relationships. People-pleasing disguised as kindness ultimately harms both you and your relationships, as it is based on an unspoken expectation of reciprocity or validation. On the other hand, when you practice kindness without seeking approval, you are better able to set healthy boundaries. You recognize that being kind does not mean saying yes to everything or everyone. It means being compassionate and considerate while also honoring your own needs and limits. You can be kind and still say no when necessary. You can be kind and still stand up for yourself when someone oversteps your boundaries. This balance allows you to maintain your integrity while also nurturing genuine, healthy relationships. By setting boundaries, you avoid the emotional exhaustion that comes from trying to please everyone, and you give others the opportunity to respect and appreciate you for who you are, not just what you do for them. Another important aspect of separating kindness from approval seeking is that it frees you from the fear of rejection or disapproval. When you base your actions on the need for approval, you live in constant fear of rejection. This fear can paralyze you, causing you to avoid taking risks, speaking your truth, or pursuing your goals because you're afraid of what others might think. However, when you practice kindness from a place of authenticity, you no longer need others' approval to feel good about yourself. You understand that not everyone will like you or agree with you, and that's okay. You are at peace with yourself because you know that your kindness comes from a place of genuine care, not a need for validation. This sense of inner peace is one of the greatest rewards of practicing true kindness. When you are kind without seeking approval, you are free to give and receive love more openly. You are no longer operating from a place of fear or insecurity, but from a place of abundance and self-acceptance. Your kindness becomes a gift that you offer to the world, not a transaction in which you hope to receive something in return. This shift in mindset allows you to build deeper, more meaningful connections with others, as your relationships are based on mutual respect and authenticity rather than a need for approval. In conclusion, kindness is not about seeking approval or trying to make everyone like you. It is about offering compassion, care, and respect to both yourself and others without sacrificing your own authenticity or well-being. Approval seeking, on the other hand, is rooted in insecurity and the fear of rejection. It causes you to lose touch with your true self and leads to emotional exhaustion and unfulfilling relationships. By letting go of the need for approval and embracing true kindness, you can live a more empowered, authentic life, where your actions are guided by your values and inner strength, rather than the opinions of others. Kindness, when practiced with integrity, allows you to be your true self and build relationships that are based on mutual respect, love, and understanding. Kindness is often associated with softness, warmth, and gentleness, but one of its most powerful and overlooked aspects is truth. At its core, kindness is about caring deeply for others, and sometimes the kindest thing we can do is to speak the truth, even when it's difficult. Kindness is not about sugarcoating reality or avoiding discomfort to spare someone's feelings. It is about having the courage to be honest, even when the truth is hard to hear. Being truthful is an act of love, because it respects both the person you're speaking to and the relationship you share. True kindness does not shy away from the truth, it embraces it with compassion. One of the reasons why kindness is so closely tied to truth is that honesty fosters growth. When we tell the truth, especially in challenging situations, we give others the opportunity to reflect, learn, and improve. For example, if a friend is making choices that are harmful to them, it may feel easier to stay silent or offer empty reassurances to avoid hurting their feelings. However, this avoidance does more harm than good in the long run. By speaking the truth with kindness, you provide them with the insight they need to make better decisions. Growth can only happen when we confront the truth, and by offering that truth, even when it's hard, you are showing genuine care for the other person's well-being. The key to practicing kindness through truth lies in the way the truth is delivered. Being honest doesn't mean being blunt or harsh. It's possible to share difficult truths in a way that is considerate and respectful of the other person's feelings. This is where the real challenge of kindness comes in, balancing honesty with empathy. When you deliver the truth with compassion, you soften the blow without diluting the message. For instance, instead of criticizing someone in a way that makes them feel attacked, you can offer constructive feedback that focuses on solutions and growth. Kindness in truth-telling means that you are not using honesty as a weapon, but as a tool for positive change. At times we avoid telling the truth because we fear conflict or rejection. We may worry that if we're too honest, we'll upset others, damage our relationships, or be seen as unkind. However, avoiding the truth out of fear is not true kindness. In fact, it often leads to greater harm. When we withhold the truth, we allow misunderstandings, miscommunication, and unresolved issues to fester. This can create a distance in our relationships, eroding trust and authenticity over time. True kindness requires the courage to face difficult conversations and to be vulnerable, even if it means risking temporary discomfort or conflict. In the long run, truth strengthens relationships by building trust and fostering deeper connections. Telling the truth, even when it's hard, is also an act of kindness toward ourselves. When we avoid speaking the truth, we carry the weight of dishonesty, whether it's through silence, withholding information, or pretending that everything is fine when it's not. This can lead to feelings of frustration, resentment, and guilt. Over time, the burden of not being truthful can take a toll on our emotional and mental well-being. By speaking the truth with kindness, we free ourselves from this emotional burden and live more authentically. We honor our own integrity and values by standing up for what is right, even when it's uncomfortable. This self-honoring is a crucial aspect of true kindness. There are times when speaking the truth is not only difficult, but potentially painful for the person hearing it. In those moments, we may hesitate to be honest out of a desire to protect them from hurt. While this instinct is understandable, it's important to remember that avoiding the truth can often cause more harm than the initial pain of hearing it. People deserve to know the truth, especially in situations that affect their lives, decisions, or relationships. When we withhold the truth, we are essentially denying them the opportunity to address the issue and make informed choices. In this way, truth-telling is an essential part of respecting others' autonomy and agency. However, there's an art to telling the truth that is deeply intertwined with kindness. It's not just about what you say, but how and when you say it. Timing is crucial when delivering difficult truths. For example, bringing up a sensitive issue when someone is already going through a challenging time may not be the best approach. Kindness in truth-telling requires us to be mindful of the other person's emotional state and to choose a moment when they are more likely to be receptive. Additionally, framing the truth in a way that emphasizes care and support can help soften its impact. For instance, instead of focusing solely on what's wrong, you can acknowledge the person's strengths and offer encouragement for how they can move forward. Truth-telling can also strengthen trust and deepen relationships. When people know that they can rely on you to be honest, they feel more secure in their connection with you. Trust is the foundation of any healthy relationship, and it is built through consistent honesty. Even though telling the truth may sometimes lead to difficult conversations or temporary discomfort, it ultimately creates a stronger bond. People value authenticity, and they are more likely to trust someone who is willing to be truthful, even when it's hard, than someone who avoids uncomfortable truths for the sake of keeping the peace. Moreover, being truthful fosters a culture of accountability. When we are honest with others, we encourage them to be honest with us as well. This creates an environment where open communication and mutual respect thrive. In relationships where truth is valued, people are more likely to hold each other accountable in a loving way. Instead of avoiding issues or allowing problems to go unchecked, they can address them head-on with kindness and understanding. This kind of accountability leads to personal and relational growth as people feel supported in becoming their best selves. At times, the hardest truths to tell are the ones we must tell ourselves. Self-honesty is a critical component of kindness. It's easy to deceive ourselves, to avoid facing our own flaws, mistakes, or uncomfortable feelings. However, kindness toward ourselves involves being truthful about where we are in life, what we need to work on, and what changes we need to make for our own growth and happiness. When we are willing to face the truth about ourselves, we open the door to healing and transformation. Just as we need to be kind in delivering difficult truths to others, we must also approach self-truth with compassion, giving ourselves the grace to grow and evolve. In conclusion, kindness is not about avoiding difficult conversations or sparing others from discomfort at the expense of honesty. Kindness is telling the truth even when it's hard, because truth is a form of love and respect. By speaking the truth with empathy and compassion, we create opportunities for growth, foster deeper connections, and strengthen trust. True kindness embraces honesty, knowing that it is through truth that we nurture authentic, meaningful relationships with others and with ourselves. In the end, kindness and truth are inseparable, and it is in their union that we find the deepest expressions of care and integrity. Kindness and forgiveness are deeply intertwined, as both are rooted in compassion, understanding, and a desire for healing. To truly be kind, we must cultivate the ability to forgive not only others but also ourselves. Forgiveness is one of the most profound expressions of kindness because it requires us to let go of anger, resentment, and the desire for retribution, all of which are barriers to connection and peace. When we hold on to grudges or grievances, we close off our hearts not only to the person we are holding something against, but also to the world. Kindness demands that we soften, that we release the burdens of the past, and that we open ourselves to healing and renewal through the act of forgiveness. Forgiveness is often misunderstood as condoning or excusing harmful behavior, but that is not the case. Forgiveness is not about forgetting or accepting mistreatment, it is about freeing ourselves from the emotional chains that bind us to pain. When we forgive, we acknowledge the hurt, but we choose not to let it define us or our relationships moving forward. Forgiveness allows us to move beyond the role of the victim, taking back our power and choosing to heal rather than remain stuck in the cycle of bitterness or anger. This shift from resentment to forgiveness is one of the greatest acts of kindness we can offer, both to ourselves and to others. One of the first steps toward practicing kindness through forgiveness is to recognize that everyone makes mistakes and no one is perfect. We all have moments where we fall short, where we hurt others, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Holding others to impossible standards or expecting perfection only fosters frustration and disappointment. True kindness understands the fallibility of human nature and makes space for imperfection. It is in this space of acceptance that forgiveness can flourish. When we acknowledge that we are all flawed, we begin to cultivate empathy for others' shortcomings. This empathy forms the foundation for forgiveness because it allows us to see the humanity in the person who hurt us, even when we are still processing our own pain. Forgiveness does not come easily, and it is often a process that takes time, especially when we have been deeply hurt. However, holding on to anger and resentment only prolongs our suffering. When we refuse to forgive, we are the ones who carry the emotional weight of that decision. It can consume our thoughts, drain our energy, and prevent us from experiencing the fullness of life. In contrast, when we choose to forgive, we liberate ourselves from the burden of past hurts. Forgiveness is a gift we give to ourselves as much as it is an act of kindness toward the person who wronged us. By forgiving, we allow ourselves to heal, to move forward with a lighter heart, and to reclaim the peace that was disrupted by the original offense. At its core, forgiveness is an act of self-kindness. It requires us to let go of the desire for revenge or justice and instead focus on our own healing and well-being. This does not mean that the person who hurt us is free from accountability or that the pain they caused is invalidated. Forgiveness simply shifts the focus from what was done to us to how we can take control of our own emotional state. It is an empowering act because it allows us to stop waiting for someone else to make things right or to apologize in order for us to feel better. We take ownership of our healing by deciding that we will not let the past define our present or future. Self-forgiveness is an equally important aspect of kindness. Often we are much harder on ourselves than we are on others. We carry guilt, shame, and regret over our own mistakes, sometimes for years, refusing to extend the same compassion to ourselves that we would offer to a friend. Yet kindness requires that we forgive ourselves as well. Self-forgiveness is not about denying responsibility for our actions, but about recognizing that we, too, are imperfect and that making mistakes is part of being human. By forgiving ourselves, we can release the heavy burden of guilt and shame, allowing ourselves to grow and learn from our past rather than being trapped by it. Forgiving ourselves can be a powerful act of self-compassion that helps us move forward with more love and understanding for ourselves. It also enables us to extend that same kindness to others. When we are kind to ourselves, we are more capable of being kind to others. Self-forgiveness teaches us the value of second chances, and it opens our hearts to the possibility that others, too, are worthy of forgiveness. By practicing self-compassion, we become more attuned to the struggles and mistakes of those around us, making it easier to forgive them when they fall short. It is important to remember that forgiveness does not require reconciliation. While forgiveness is an act of kindness, it does not mean that we must continue a relationship with someone who has harmed us. In some cases, maintaining distance is necessary for our emotional or physical well-being. Forgiveness allows us to release the emotional baggage attached to the situation without necessarily re-engaging with the person who caused the hurt. We can forgive and still maintain boundaries that protect our peace and well-being. Forgiveness is about letting go internally, not necessarily reconnecting externally. There is also a profound freedom that comes from letting go of the need to be right. Many times our refusal to forgive stems from a need to prove that we were wronged, to be validated in our feelings, or to have someone acknowledge our pain. While these desires are natural, they can also keep us stuck in a cycle of resentment. Forgiveness requires humility, the understanding that being kind and finding peace is more important than being right. By letting go of our need to win or to be vindicated, we open the door to healing and to the possibility of moving on from the pain. Kindness through forgiveness also has a ripple effect. When we choose to forgive, we not only free ourselves from the emotional weight of the past, but we also set an example for others. Forgiveness can inspire others to act with more compassion and kindness in their own lives. By showing that it is possible to forgive even when it is difficult, we create a culture of empathy, understanding, and connection. This ripple effect of kindness can extend far beyond the individual situation, touching the lives of others who witness the power of forgiveness. In conclusion, kindness and forgiveness are inseparable. Forgiveness is one of the most profound expressions of kindness because it requires us to let go of anger, resentment, and the desire for retribution. It frees us from the emotional burdens of the past and allows us to move forward with a lighter heart. Whether it's forgiving others or ourselves, the act of forgiveness is an essential part of living a kind, compassionate, and fulfilling life. It allows us to heal, to grow, and to open our hearts to deeper connections and peace. True kindness is not complete without forgiveness, for it is in forgiving that we find the greatest freedom and the deepest expressions of love.